Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. We're at episode number 1692. Thank you so much for joining me for it. Thank you so much for subscribing to the show if you're doing that to make sure that you get it delivered to you wherever you like to catch it. And also, thank you so much to all the patrons who are supporting the show and helping me deliver this daily dose of Star Wars joy at patreon.com/SW7x7. All right. Let's just briefly update ourselves on Title Watch 2019. So yesterday went by and no, there was no announcement for the subtitle of episode 9. Instead, there was an announcement about Project Porg coming from ILM X Lab. So no, that's definitely not a place where you're going to find a hidden announcement about episode 9, but we will be keeping an eye on Star Wars for Title Watch 2019. And with that said, let's move on to the actual for what we're going to be doing here today, which is talking about Galaxy of Adventures and the announcement. So James Waugh, who is all right, here I'm going to try and remember this off the top of my head, the VP of franchise something and strategy. All right, let's take the magic of editing and get that right. Yes. Vice President for franchise content and strategy. All right, so now that we've corrected that. So there were three particular things that I wanted to flag in the announcement story that came out actually back at the end of November. And this is the first one. This is coming straight from the story on StarWars.com. In talking about the creation of Galaxy of Adventures, Waugh says they took on the challenge and embraced the opportunity to leverage the medium and target audience to breathe new life into scenes from the original trilogy or create new scenes, new moments that exemplify the heroism of the characters, their key traits. There were a lot of discussions around what were the right stories or moments to develop that would show these traits, unquote. Now, on the one hand, that sort of sounds revolutionary, and on the other hand, it's actually not all that much. And I don't mean that in a negative fashion. Actually, I mean it to be reflective of the fact that there was initially some feedback about Galaxy of Adventures about, well, I guess we could put it in the category of fear, right? I mean, there's sort of that notion of everything either being, an expression of love or an expression of fear. And so I think it's probably safe to say that there were some folks who were reacting to Galaxy of Adventures with something more based in fear than anything else, and that this is going to somehow significantly alter the way that Star Wars stories are told, or that the stories themselves are going to be altered, which is, possibly a scary thought. But really, what's happening is exactly what was happening when we got our, picture books with the little 45 vinyl records. I mean, yes, that's how far back I go. All those Star Wars storytelling books, heck, we can go to Mission to Ord Mantell, for example. I mean, I've got one of those, right? And those stories where we met our characters in the moments in between the moments that we already knew, and the stories were being told in different ways. That's all this is at this point. And so, it's exciting. And so far, at least what I've seen of it, is actually very dynamic. And it's designed exactly for the target audience, as they've said, for a younger generation and in bite-sized micro chunks to be able to get them hooked on Star Wars. And then we have this note about the series in general, where it says the dynamic animated adventures are only part of a multi-pronged initiative under the Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures banner and the beginning of a year-long celebration of Star Wars storytelling, which will culminate with the final chapter in the Skywalker saga, Star Wars Episode 9, in theaters December 2019. So, first of all, that whole multi-pronged initiative thing, well, I know that there are little comics that come with the Galaxy of Adventures inspired action figures, for example. So yeah, definitely a multi-pronged initiative in that sense. But really the thing that stood out for me was the year-long celebration of Star Wars storytelling. We haven't really heard anything more about that notion or that concept since then. We've had announcements of new novels, new stories that are coming out over the course of the next few months, but we haven't had anything directly talking about the notion of a celebration of Star Wars storytelling. And so, When I heard that, I thought about how we had at Orlando, at Celebration Orlando in 2017, there was a celebration of 40 years of Star Wars in general, because of course it was the 40th anniversary of the release of the original movie. And so you could, in a way, talk about, a similar sort of thing, because they had a, main stage panel deal that was devoted to that specifically on the first day. I can't quite see them doing that this time around, because it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for Orlando. This time it's going to be, Thursday is not a full day, it's the collector's day. So it's Friday through Monday, really. So a panel that talks about a celebration of Star Wars storytelling, I don't see them doing that on the Friday. I think that's definitely an episode 9 day. But they could kick off a day of panels at Celebration Chicago by doing this celebration of Star Wars storytelling, whatever that may be. And who knows, it might have something to tie into with The Phantom Menace and the fact that we are in the 20th anniversary year of that film coming out. So I definitely think that that is a hint at something larger that we're going to be hearing about at Celebration Chicago. So let's keep an eye out for that. And one other thing I wanted to flag for you in this article, I will tell you about in just a second. However, first, I do want to remind you, if you are not subscribing to the show wherever you like to get it, then I hope you will do that. And I hope you will also consider supporting me and continuing to deliver this daily dose of Star Wars joy at patreon.com/SW7x7. All right, so let's talk about this last quote from the article that's also very intriguing in its own right. We have James Waugh talking again, with episode 9 coming in December and being the conclusion of the Skywalker saga. The long journey over 40 years of storytelling comes to its end. Galaxy of Adventures walks through, etc., etc. I'm not going to go through the whole quote. You can see it here, because the rest of it is not what I'm interested in talking to you about for the particular second. The notion of over 40 years of storytelling coming to its end with episode 9, I mean, you can keep telling me that the Skywalker saga is going to end, and I'm not saying I don't believe you, but hearing it like this really actually kind of made it feel very final for me. Like, to the point where I know, for example, and we haven't really talked about it on the podcast, but say, for example, the second season or series of Darth Vader comic books for Marvel, they're really digging into some, deep stuff with Darth Vader and revealing some interesting things about him as a character. But that stuff may go on, and yet with a comment like that, it really seems to close the door on us learning anything new, crazy, unique, or interesting about the Skywalker family. And so it actually makes me wonder what we're going to learn about Luke and Leia and Ben Solo once episode 9 is done with. I mean, are we actually going to leave them alone as characters? Are we not going to explore, parts of their history in between the events of Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens? I mean, the finality of that statement strikes me as really rather shocking. And so, I'd love to hear what you think. Like, once this is over, do you think they're just not going to tell us any more stories about Luke and Leia and Ben and Han, for that matter? Let me know wherever you happen to catch this episode, if it has a comment section. And if it doesn't, or doesn't have the ability to let you reply, then by all means, head to home base for the show. That's SW7x7.com. And that is going to do it for today's show, my friends. Thank you again so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.